And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, October 28th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined once again by Chris Spags. We're brought to you by the tip-off promo, which still exists, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. 11 games today if you play on FanDuel. 9 if you play on DraftKings. It's going to be fun. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Spags, what's up?
Excited to be here again. I like that for DraftKings. We're getting a slightly shorter slate. I heard you talking about it on the strategy show where you don't have to be locked in your computer all night. You just have to be locked in for a portion of the night while football's also going on. But it's a fun slate. It's got some value opening up with the Atlanta stuff right away. Some questionable chalk, I think, or some players at least that we haven't seen play this year who might be owned a lot more because they're 3K flat on DraftKings and minimum salary and have dual position eligibility. So I think it's a fun one to break down. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I like it as well. I kind of wish, like, on a day like today with football, I wish there were late games because I want more opportunities to swap and I want less people paying attention to it. Like, it's definitely worse for me, but at the same time, the idea of this slate being done at 8:30 is incredibly appealing.
It's just odd that this is now moved around so many times where it's like, oh yeah, late swap gone, late swap back. Full slate's gone, full slate's back sometimes. FanDuel doing full slates. It's confusing, and there needs to be like a meeting of the minds, like a crime family meeting where they all come together at one table and go like, here's how we're gonna do business, and then they figure it out and like at least it's all unitized a little bit or uniform. And I feel unitized is probably not a word, but uniform. And I think that's what I would hope for, but we're not there yet. My utopia has not been realized.
It's funny. DraftKings is definitely like the New York of the crime families, and FanDuel is definitely the Jersey version.
In what respect? It's a little bit less classy, just a little bit.
Well, no, like if you remember The Sopranos, like Tony and his crew would go and meet with all like the Carmine and New York people, and then they'd leave and they'd be like, fucking Jersey, you know. So like they treated them with contempt and disrespect, and that's how we treated FanDuel for a while till they started making better contests this year.
Yeah, they could buy our love. Very easy to do that with overlay.
Yeah, anybody can buy my love. I am easily bought. I've done commercials for Coke and Pepsi. I don't give a fuck. Pepsi paid me more, most recent, so it tastes better. Indiana Pacers, 5-point dogs in Orlando, 224 total. Interesting game. Two quality teams in the East. A little bit of a coin flip. Two should be competitive. Not the best matchup for DFS. Depending on which side you're looking at, Orlando leans defense. Indy certainly doesn't. Ownership on the Pacers. 10% is coming into Andrew Nembhard, only guy in double digits on DraftKings, and no one is on double digits on FanDuel. Do you like Nembhard? Do you like anything here?
I really don't. I did get Nembhard sim-wise, and he's really been playing even beneath his standards so far this year. Obviously, very small sample size, but a 0.6 fantasy point per minute from Nembhard to start the year, not really moving my emotions too much. This team looks gross. The total looks gross. Even Halliburton's price tag is like so high for a guy that, again, I could see the numbers and it's small sample size stuff, but Halliburton under 0.8 fantasy points per minute to start the year. And he like kind of underwhelmed me last year when Siakam came in, how he was playing seemingly deferred a little bit too much. Now with Mathurin back in, we're going even lower, and Indiana's just not playing fun right now. And I don't think the projections look fun. Maybe they overcome that, Josh, but I don't really see anything at all here besides Nembhard being a value with dual position eligibility.
Yeah, I don't have much of this one either. I don't know if I said it at the beginning. I'm only playing DraftKings because I'd like to be done at 8:30. So instead of playing FanDuel like I have for the past couple days, I'm playing DK. I've got a little bit of Nembhard, but that's basically it for this one. I'm not all that intrigued by what's here. I'm 9% of Miles Turner, but I think that's just sort of center roulette where there's so many options that just show up as decent enough guys. And it's not like I like Nembhard, but he's going to play in and around 30 minutes, can hit you from a couple of different statistical categories. Maybe grab some defensive stats that could help you out there. Don't hate it in the worst, but like it's not a great matchup. You don't want to roll up against Orlando. I mean, this is a real defense. Plays slow. I don't have much for the Pacers.
Yeah, the pace down of it all. Again, tournament plays, something were to hit, you're great, more power to you. I just don't see how you would go in using math and go like, yes, there's a lot of great plays here.
Now, on the Orlando side, there's a little bit more ownership. It's not coming in on FanDuel. Highest owned guy is Paolo Banchero, but 15% ownership to Jalen Suggs. He's $700 cheaper on DK. 13% ownership coming into a $5,500 Wendell Carter Jr., and then 10% coming into Franz, 7 to Paolo, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Franz Wagner is questionable, as is John Isaac.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of these guys, or a lot more than I would have thought. 2x the field on Wagner, again, assuming he goes. I've been playing well to start the year. Used to just look pretty good. I think the price tag works well for small forward tonight. So got about 21% of him. Wendell Carter was basically holding hands with the field sim-wise. Got a little bit more Suggs. Suggs was in a lot of the top ROI lineups I saw from Stokastic before, which, I get. He's been a good player. He's been better, I think, over the last year than people probably realized when he came into the league and was just like a disaster for the most part fantasy wise. Now he's stabilized, and this year playing really well, playing at a 1.3 fantasy point per minute pace so far this year. Not, again, small sample size, have to keep giving that caveat, but like for him to even have that upside and a small sample, I think is a pretty good pretty move for him. So Suggs for tournaments, I if you're not paying up, I think he works pretty well. Besides that, didn't get much Bancaro, didn't get much of anything besides Franz, Carter, and Suggs.
Yeah, I have 27% of Suggs, so basically 2x the field. He very clearly looks like the best Orlando option to me just because of that price. He's underpriced for what he does. And Indiana has absolutely no defense to speak of, basically anywhere. So that should help them out tremendously. I'm neutral to the field on Franz. We'll see how that ends up looking. 7 o'clock start, so we're going to know whether Franz is playing and have plenty of time to react to it. If he ends up out, everybody's sort of going to get like a little bit of a bump. I think Caleb Houston probably steps into the rotation as a completely useless guy from a fantasy perspective. Paolo probably looks a little bit better just because he's going to take on a little bit more usage. I don't have much interest in him either, but not that I wouldn't roster him. I think that's it. Not that appealing of a game, and we've got more appealing games to talk about, like this next one. Washington, well, appealing is in the eye of the beholder, but it's more owned. Washington is a 7-point underdog in Atlanta. 234 total is the highest total on today's slate. We're going to start on the Wizards side. 10% ownership coming into Kuzma on DK, around 17 on FanDuel. You're also seeing similar ownership to Jordan Poole on FanDuel. Bilal Coulibaly is at 12 on FanDuel. But the biggest thing that we need to talk about, those three guys are the only guys getting ownership on both sites. But Bilal Coulibaly is getting 34% on DraftKings right now at 4,900, shooting guard, small forward eligible. I think he looks great. I do happen to be fading him, though.
Yeah, again, this was a sim where I didn't touch anything beforehand. So like if I'm building tonight, and I'm probably going to be more inclined to move around this, but Coulibaly got flat with the field on it sim wise. I think that, to me, selling a tail of the sim, thinking he's a pretty good play, but not one that we're going to have standing out as much as we sometimes do these value plays. So I'm okay with them. He's at, so far this year, 0.86 fantasy points per minute. I have him projected for about 0.75 tonight. I think he's the play where like, people are going to have him as the bring back with Atlanta. I don't know that, and I don't know if this game could even be a blowout for Atlanta with them on a back-to-back as well. But I feel like this could be a situation where Coulibaly gets played with a lot of Atlanta guys, and you could have Jordan Poole or Kuzma going off. So I got about 8% of both Kuzma and Poole, and I would like to up that a little bit. Poole playing really efficiently to start the year, which is surprising to see. But I think that's been an encouraging sign, even though I kind of expect to regress. But 72% true shooting to start the year for Poole, given what he's been since going to the Wizards, I think a surprise to see. But I like something for Washington. I think I'd rather go out of my way to get Kuzma or Poole. But Coulibaly is just going to get his way forced in every lineup, and I don't know that's actually worth playing.
Yeah, I don't have any Kuzma right now. I do have a small amount of Jordan Poole, but I'm half the field of Coulibaly. Does lead me to like some nerves. I think we can very easily say like you're probably not all that interested in anything else from Washington. If you're playing anybody, it's Kuzma, Bilal Coulibaly, or Poole.
Yeah, got a little bit of Bub, aka Carlton Carrington. Got a little bit of Kaishan George, but like legit like 1 out of 150 is what I got, maybe 2.
Okay. I think the spot we need to spend some time is the Atlanta side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Bogdan Bogdanovic is out. DeAndre Hunter is questionable. It's seeming like he's playing, but again, we don't know. Hopefully we'll have an update early enough. Late swaps, though, will have to be there. I'm just going to hit DraftKings first, and then I'll hit FanDuel. 20% ownership to Trey, 20 to Jalen Johnson, 25 to Dyson Daniels, 25 to DeAndre Hunter, 35 to Clint Capella, 25 to Larry Nance, 10 to Risa Shea. And it's kind of similar on FanDuel, 10 to Young, 30 to Johnson, 40 to Capella. Because we have no Onyeka Okongwu today, and that changes the scope of everything. So let's start with the easiest piece of this. How are you feeling about 36% owned $5,400 center Clint Capella?
got him 41% of my lineups in the sim before this one, which feels about right to me. I mean, I think really he's the safest part you'd expect right now because he's been just in a timeshare with Okonkwo to start the year. It's been the case basically for the last few seasons. So feel pretty good about him in the run out. I guess, the faint fears historically of him getting played off against Washington with the pace and all that. But besides that, I don't really think that's the case, especially given the lack of bodies. So Capella feels like a pretty secure play. Whether he has enough of a ceiling to win a tournament, I don't know. But at 5,400, he's clearly not priced for the opportunity. So I think Capella, at least being with the field, feels right to me.
Yeah, I have 52%. He looks fantastic. Could play upwards of 30 minutes. Like, we just don't know that he can, but he could. I only have him in for 26. I think that's pretty manageable. It's only 4 more than he's been playing. So I am very, very happy to get to Clint Capella. The next question I have for you is, how do you want to handle 25% owned, flat min, power forward center Larry Nance?
I think you just play him a lot. I have real concern though. Like, so he hasn't played this year. Obviously been a great producer when he's played historically. I think historically we have him at about 0.9 fantasy point per minute, but you can talk about it being 1.2, depending on the situation he's in and how much he's touching the ball and how the offense looks and all that. So like, I like Nance conceptually, I guess. And obviously, dual position eligibility, 3K min salary, all of that makes really good sense. And it comes up a lot in the sim. I guess my question for you, Josh, is like, are we sure he's a backup center? Are we sure that he gets the minutes? Because the matchup, like, it's all good, but I don't know that he gets, 20 minutes, 19 minutes was projected right now by Stokastic.
No, I think, okay, so yes and no. Like, he's a great play today if he's the backup center. I think we could all just agree there. But there is definitely some ambiguity to whether or not he gets just strictly backup center run. Do they go to Jalen Johnson at the 5? Do they go to alternative options at the 5? Like, they've got some options to be able to do this. So I do think that there's at least a little bit of, hey, don't necessarily just let this one rip. Like, if we had been seeing this, like, if he had been playing and stuff, this would look a little, you'd have a different level of confidence, but he does not have to be a guy that just goes out there and plays whatever minutes Capella doesn't play, especially against Washington. Like, when they take Joval off the floor, anybody on Atlanta can be the center. Mm-hmm. Like, when Joval's out there, I mean, not that you couldn't go small against Joval and stretch him out and beat them in reverse, but like, if Joval's not out there, no matter what other center they run out, like if it's Bagley, yeah, Jalen Johnson can be the center against Bagley. Nance can be like anybody can be the center at that point, except for like Vit Krejci or Trey,
which would be hilarious.
I'm definitely going to like make sure I don't have all of the Larry Nance because I don't have enough confidence in his playing time. When you just put in like a one distinct minutes number, I think it sort of skews him a little bit because I'm less concerned about how I think Larry Nance plays and more about how much he plays.
Yeah, if he got 30 minutes, he would be a slam dunk play. Like if you knew he's going to get 30, if he were the starter, let's say Capella was out and we knew he was playing the reliable backup minutes, like he'd be great. But if it's 15 to 20 and you get 15, like 15 even at 3K, you have to be over above, like what, 1.2 per minute to still not kill you. So there's real risk of him killing you
need 30 from him tonight, basically. 25 plus easy.
It's a big enough slate. Yeah, look, I like him as a play. It is still one of those things where would like him better if you knew he was guaranteed minutes somehow. I don't think we're going to know that because there are enough ways you can go. And, it's also back-to-back too. That's weird. Like, that's kind of a weird time to bring him back. It all seems a little bit odd. Like, there's something here that feels like it's going to kill the slate. But, like, this matchup on a back-to-back, you're playing Washington. Like, awesome. They can all play their full run and still go crazy.
Well, I also mentioned a bunch of other guys here. Trae Young pulling massive ownership, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, DeAndre Hunter, even Reese Sachet a bit. It will depend on whether or not Hunter plays to see if Reese Sachet looks better. But what are you doing with the rest of Atlanta?
Getting a lot of them. Trae is probably my favorite play of the group historically, at least. And it's not the biggest sample size either, but about 200 minutes since last year. Court time without DeJounte Murray, court time without Bogdan Bogdanovic out there. 36% usage, 51% assist rate for Trae. Given that it's a matchup against Washington, kind of expect him to be that efficient. So I like him a lot as a play. I've got him probably a little bit too highly projected, to be honest, because I'm about 4 points ahead of where Stokastic is right now. But I like him as a play because I think, if this game goes as expected, he should be the one that benefits the most from just a lack of guys out there to get the ball up. Dyson Daniels, I'm getting with the field. I feel the least good about him, but he's put up some big box score games. Like the one I didn't get any of is Jalen Johnson, and that kind of scares me the most because we know he's got 60 fantasy point upside. I didn't get there at all.
I am way under the field on Jalen Johnson right now, but I share an opposite sentiment of Dyson Daniels. He's my second most exposed hawk.
Really? What is it about him? Because he just doesn't do a lot of anything, and that's usually where I'm like, this guy maybe not great chalk.
I think he kind of does do a lot of everything. I think he's a different player than what he was for New Orleans. Like he's deployed in a different way now, which helps. I like the MPE. The price tag is manageable. And this feels like a great spot for him for defensive stats. Like this guy is a ball hawk. And I've got him currently projected for 2.5 stocks, but against Washington, feels like a team that could get their shot blocked too many times and definitely have too many turnovers and steals. So I could see Dyson Daniels really buoying his score with like a couple extra defensive stats. And after that, it just doesn't take much.
Yeah, I guess the defensive stats are what I'm missing here because I just see like a guy 18% usage rate, 12% assist rate. Like, I have him for 0.85 fantasy points per minute. I know he's been at 0.99 to start the year, but again, that's with some of the stocks adding some upside there. Just based off his usage and like the way he's a ball handler, I don't think there's a ton of value. But the defense thing is something where if you're going to ever target defensive stats, probably the matchup to do it.
Trey looks fine. I am a little bit lighter, but I see him as like an easy guy to get away from since there are other pay up options. And in particular, I have one of them a lot. And then right now I'm actually neutral to the field on DeAndre Hunter, but that will completely depend on whether he plays or not.
Yeah, I got a good amount of Hunter. Don't mind that play. Didn't get much Rizache. Got a little bit more than the field, but I think just his projections, hard to project him to have a ton of upside with how he's been playing so far and just even the international stats for him.
Either way, what we know is this. Atlanta is probably the best team on the slate today.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great matchup. Like if this were any team with any sort of skill going against them, I'd go. Yeah, they played OKC last night, right? Like tough game against OKC. Played a lot of minutes. Probably don't want to go here that much. But the total is bananas because they're playing Washington, and Washington sucks. So this is like the perfect situation to maybe not fade this team and watch them all bust somehow.
Play the Hawks, folks, as much as you can get, but make sure you're paying attention to live before lock because you need to know the status of DeAndre Hunter. Anything else for Atlanta?
No, just a good team to target. Lots of good things to go to here, and definitely some key decision points to be made.
All righty, folks. Schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. You've got NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. They'll go from 6 until 7. And then at 7:15, you've got Monday Night Football tonight, which means you have NFL Live Before Lock from 7:15 until 8:15. So there are 3 hours of content on this channel still to come yet today. We don't quit, man. We don't quit. We're churning it out constantly. So don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The Milwaukee Yucks taking on the Boston Celtics. Yucks are 9.5-point dogs in Boston, 232 total. There is no ownership coming into Milwaukee. 3% to Giannis is the high mark on DK. 9% to Bobby Portis is the high mark on FanDuel. I've got 9% of Giannis and no other Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I got 5% Giannis, and that was it. Nobody else. Feels like you should get more in a competitive game, but Lillard's price tag, I don't like that much, even for him having a little bit more usage this year. Actually, no, pretty much flat usage-wise. Really nothing here stands out at all. I think the Boston side a little bit more appealing. Obviously, Giannis always appealing under 5% owned, especially in a competitive game where should theoretically be hanging in there for 4 quarters and doing as much as he can. He seems like a great tournament play. It's just projection-wise, I think a lot of guys look better. Like I'd rather pay down a little bit more, gets a Trey or Tatum. Rather pay up a little bit more, gets a Jokic, Luka, even Wemby. So I think he's kind of in a no man's land for me today, but that's probably what makes him compelling if you're going to play him.
Yeah, I have nothing else here to say about Milwaukee. They do not appear to look good here today. They don't look good as a real team. They're almost 10-point dogs in Boston in the first month of the season. Yuck across the board. Not a ton to like from Boston just because they're so blurry as a team. 13% ownership coming into Jason Tatum on DK. 13% ownership coming into Drew Holiday on FanDuel. They're the only 2 guys in double digits. I mean, if you want to play Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, like I'm never going to tell anybody not to. I have like a tiny amount of all 4 of those dudes. I don't have anybody from Boston that just stands out. Tatum looks good though.
Tatum is the one that I think stands out enough. I've got a little bit less than 2x the field on him. And I think
Nice.
too on DK lineups with Tatum and Trey Young work kind of well because you're spending less money. Both guys project above 50 fantasy points. So you're boosting that projection a little bit. And I think both guys have some upside if their games stay competitive and they go where they need to go. So I actually do like Tatum a decent amount. Jaylen Brown's usage has been right there with Tatum to start the year, so maybe he should get a little more love on the assumption that at a certain point, Tatum's shooting comes back down to earth. I know people are really into the narrative this summer of him. We can't shoot, and we talked this before a few times, but it's like he's now getting the positive regression. At a certain point, he's going to level back out and get closer to like 60% true shooting. Right now, he's at 69. So Jaylen Brown getting better, Tatum getting worse is going to happen sooner than later. But projection wise today, Tatum looks like one of the better plays on the slate, point per dollar.
Yeah, I only have 6%, but I would not mind at all to get a bunch more. He looks really good today. Grades out as the best Celtic. I just don't happen to have him. But really, just in total, not that appealing of a DFS matchup.
No, and these are these marquee games. I feel like this happens a lot for the slates, at least, recently enough, where it's like you have these marquee games and it's like everybody's priced so aggressively and you don't really end up getting the players, even though, this should be a game that matters and goes down to the wire. And certainly two teams that, no love lost between these two, Josh.
No, not so much. No love lost here either between Detroit and Miami. Noted rivals. 8.5-point dogs for the Pistons in Miami. 219.5 total. Second lowest total on today's slate. There's really only one major talking point from the Pistons, and it's not even relevant to you and I that much today. Tobias Harris is 25% owned on FanDuel, $6,100 small forward, power forward. On the DK side, only Tobias Harris is in double digits at 12%. It's singles across the board. I actually have 9% of Cade at what we are projecting to be 2% ownership. I like that, but I also don't have much interest in anything from Detroit.
Yeah, I didn't get more than 5% for anybody here. Cade, I would like to get to a little bit more, but a little bit tough with how much I think I like Trey today relatively. But Cade, at his price point, usage has been up for him. He's looking pretty good to start the year. At a certain point, I think Tobias Harris shoots more, and that could be tonight relative to him being chalk and at least FanDuel. But I think Cade's an interesting tournament play with just 2% projected ownership. Everybody else here, I got nobody above 5%. So even Tobias on DraftKings, like he's going to be 12% owned. I got 3. He doesn't look like that great of a play to me at least on DraftKings.
Yeah, 9% Cade, 6% Tobias Harris, and not a single share of anybody else from the Pistons. And I am not going to go out of my way to figure out how I can get more of them.
Yeah, I fixed Ron Holland's name today because he's Ronald Holland too in some things, and he's Ron Holland in others. So I got that. That's my big Pistons related news.
I have he has filled up my names table. Ronald Holland the second, Ron Holland, Ronald Holland, Ron Holland the second. He's every combination. He is all of the things.
I feel like it's such a classic Ron thing too. These Rons, get it on the board. Be Ron, be Ronald. You can't be both.
I can't think of a single good Ron on this planet.
McDonald.
I'm waiting for chat to just explode.
Oh, Jersey Shore Ronnie, not the best, but
the news god is about to lose his mind.
Oh, I forgot that he's a Ron. I just know him as El Negro Loco.
I was waiting for him to be like, yo, or my DMs screaming.
My brain goes to famous Rons, to be clear. I didn't think of Rons I know in real life. I live next to a Ron. He's fine. He can't train his dogs for shit. 2 party poodles are fucking, yap.
Just let him out, dude.
Oh, we've talked about, because my older dog passed away. We were joking for a while about how like we would definitely kill the neighbor dogs just to get like Penny back. But it would be one of those where it's like it would be good on both sides of the equation. It's like the Seinfeld episode where the dog won't stop barking. Like,
oh, so good.
Got a fence put up because they would just yap through the fence.
Yeah, my dog's a yapper on the opposite side, but he can't help it.
I saw you got a puppy coming too this morning, which I was excited. Keith, right?
Keith, yes. Keith will be joining this household in the beginning of December. Exciting stuff.
Why Keith the name?
We named him after Keith Scott, the character on One Tree Hill.
Okay, so not because you watched The Life and Times of Tim and there was a dog named Keith on there.
I don't know what The Life and Times of Tim is.
Great animated show. HBO animated show. One of my favorites of all time. I think you would find it funny, but
okay. I'll check it out.
I think it's on Max now.
Yeah. So Keith after Keith Scott, because One Tree Hill was filmed in Wilmington. So we were looking for like a mild ode to the town. And we felt like Keith was a real preposterous name for a dog.
It is. Anytime a dog or a cat gets a human name, I'm like, really? But I know enough of them now where I'm used to it. But I like objects. Give me an object, a city, location.
Here we go. Miami Heat. 10% ownership to Tyler Hero is the only double-digit number on anyone here for Miami. DraftKings or FanDuel. I happen to have 15% of Nikola Jovic right now, so I'm going to dig into him a little bit. But otherwise, I don't have a single share of anyone that plays for the Miami Heat.
I got some Jovic as well. Did get less in the field on Hero, which I'm I have a little bit less projection on him than Stokastic does, but I'm surprised I'm that low. But didn't get it really any hero. Got 3% of him, got 2% of Bam, 0.2% of Terry Rozier. So nothing really here. I feel like Butler's got a reasonable price tag for this game. Like Detroit's a little bit better this year. I think they can hang in this game, and Butler in a competitive kind of environment. I still don't mind that, trying to reach for the projection a little bit, but the projection itself is not going to come up naturally in a sim with him being 8K priced and having a projection about 36.4 from Stokastic. So not a lot to love on Miami's side. Again, I think there's at least one or two tournament plays that are interesting coming up. It's in particular Butler, maybe Bam to a lesser extent. Hero I could live with. I don't feel like Hero is the one. When there's Rozier and Butler healthy, I feel like if I don't get Hero, great. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I am in the process of walking back my Jovic, which shouldn't be all that difficult.
I have a pretty big projection on you. I got him at 23.7 compared to 19.9 for Stokastic.
Yeah, his PRA is 15.5. I've got 16.5 now. I was a little bit higher than that. That was a little bit further away from that line than I wanted to be. So I just shaved a little bit off of it. I assume I end up coming in with like 6%. But moral of the story is don't really play all that much from Miami, I think.
There's something missing there with no love. Like there's like a little bit of theoretical opportunity, but it doesn't really feel like there's one beneficiary that it matters for.
My problem is just like in a matchup like this against Detroit, I expect one of Rozier, Hero, or Butler to like meet very little resistance against the Pistons. I just don't know how to pick one of them.
Yeah, probably not the most distributed production you'd think.
Fun game here. Cleveland Cavaliers, 2.5-point dogs in New York, 223 total. This is two of the higher end teams that we could watch. Should be competitive. Absolutely no ownership coming into Cleveland. 2% to Donovan Mitchell on DK, 6% on FanDuel. As always, if you want to play Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, or Allen, I would never tell anybody not to do that. I don't expect to have Cleveland. This looks rough.
Yeah, this really doesn't look great. I got 3% of Mitchell rounding up, so a little bit more than the field's 2%. Nothing else there looks that great, though. It's tough because like the New York side, not to spoil it, the New York side projects so well, so like would like to capture a game environment if possible, but Cleveland, their guys, just the minutes distribution's a little bit more evenly distributed than the Knicks are, where they have a bunch of guys playing 34 to 37 minutes, or at least projected to. For Cleveland, it's not quite that high, but the price tags are high. Mobley, his usage has been coming up a little bit, but not enough you can really bank on it yet. These guys all look okay, and they get hit against New York. Ty Jerome projects okay for me, but really that's not really a play I got any of.
Yeah. Today's probably not the Ty Jerome day.
No, but he says minimum salary. I don't know. I saw him. He's got green.
4 games late.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Breaking news, folks. DeAndre Hunter out for Atlanta. So everything that we liked before still looks good, but now instead of getting to DeAndre Hunter, Zachary Risache looks better now. So he's probably going to end up 20% owned. Yeah, everything that we said for Trey, Jalen Johnson, Daniels, Nance, Capella, like nothing's changed there. They're just better, kind of.
Is there anybody who might surprisingly get minutes here? Like,
it's Garrison Matthews and David Roddy, probably.
Okay.
And unless Garrison Matthews is playing 30 minutes, you can't play him.
Okay. Looking at the minutes again, or just the season-long numbers so far, is there a chance that it's Mohamed Gouye who's the backup center and Nance is not, and then he plays in 4?
I mean, there's a decent chance that like both of them play 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Especially with Hunter not being in, I feel like you could move Nance down if you wanted to.
Yeah. I could certainly see him being a part of this rotation. I don't really see how you could comfortably think that he's going to be like a guy you get to. Sorry, Chris in chat, who's been recommending him since we started.
Oh, hey, good for him. He's earlier than me. It doesn't look like a play, but just see the name and he's at least played a few minutes this year.
He said he was like Giannis, so I had to temper it a little bit.
Okay, that's maybe a little bit of a reach, but hey.
Yeah.
When in Rome, right?
I'm confident he'd be playing then. Yeah, play everything you can from Atlanta. From the Knicks, though. 20% ownership coming into Jalen Brunson. And then around 10 for Anunoby, Towns, and Hart. We're still waiting on Hart news. Bridges is not getting any sort of love. What do you want to do with these guys? Because I have one guy more than others. Probably not the guy you would expect.
Oh, now I'm curious. Kind of with the field on Josh Hart, a little bit above the field on OG Anunoby. Got 2x the field on Brunson. I think that to me, the price point for point guards and that 9K-ish range, I think, are coming up more for me because they make the builds work. So that's coming up. Didn't get a lot of Towns, which Towns projects well for me, but I think he's just so far behind Jokic, perhaps, and also like even guys like Nikola Vucevic for me are not too far off of him. That's probably the reason why. But got a lot of Brunson with the field on Hart, a little bit higher than the field on Anunoby, and nothing else that really matters besides coming in slightly under on Towns.
So I don't have any Towns, so I'm with you. I don't currently have any Josh Hart either. 15% of Jalen Brunson, 33% of OG Anunoby, 5,200, small forward, power forward eligible. Not that I like him in this matchup because he's kind of miscast for this particular team, but maybe that means he doesn't have to work as hard defensively. I don't know. He's just the guy that's pop. I don't know why he's the guy that's popping. Like I have his PRA right where the market is, so I don't feel like I'm like wildly wrong on him, but he is a guy that's showing up a lot. Maybe it's just the flexibility of small forward, power forward, and that low-ish price tag. By the way, like he's live for 40 minutes today.
Yeah, and his usage is suffering the most so far, so you kind of expect that to level out. And then again, he's playing 34 minutes a game right now. So if that usage levels out across 34 minutes, like he can have the upside to hit. He's been the guy it seems like he's sacrificed the most because Bridges had to quell the naysayers who don't like his jump shot. So Anunoby's the only one who's confident of himself. He doesn't have to press the usage right now.
Well, maybe he's feeling frisky tonight against Cleveland. My rec, OG Anunoby. And then I don't have much else here. Mikal Bridges, way more interesting on FanDuel, 15% owned there, $500 cheaper than he is on DK, has the shooting guard, small forward eligibility. Anything else for the Knicks?
No, I think this is a good team to target. Just feels weird to want to play a lot of Knicks and not play a lot of Cleveland coming back. And Cleveland too, Knicks not gelling right. Cleveland looking like they figured out what they are as a team pretty early on in the year.
Cleveland is looking as good as the tip-off 24 promo, which I'm going to tell you guys about right now. Get the NBA core package for $1. Projections, ownership, boom bust, single lineup sim, contest generator, post-contest sims, everything we've got on the NBA side. There's never an easier time for you to get in the door. It'll get you our NBA core package for $1. Jordan, can you hear me? It's only through tomorrow, correct? Not just the pack, not just the deal, but you only get tomorrow, correct? Okay. So that $1 will only get you access through tomorrow. But if you still want to sneak in, I mean, $1 for a day is still a really good deal. You're not getting as good of a deal as you would have gotten last week, but you could still come in right now for $1, get tonight's slate, get everything for tomorrow, and give yourself a little bit of a tester on whether or not you like Stokastic. And I'm pretty sure you will. Based on the avatars I've seen on contests lately, seems to be going pretty well on the Stokastic side. So if you want to come join us, please come join us. Denver Nuggies finally going to pick up a dub. 9-point favorites in Toronto, 223 total. Nuggets have 16% ownership coming into Nikola Jokic on DraftKings, 36 to Jamal Murray, 20 to Michael Porter Jr., around 10 for Aaron Gordon, and 15 for Christian Brown. These guys are owned a little bit less on FanDuel, but nothing too crazy, except for Christian Brown, who you shouldn't play on FanDuel. Let's start with the chalk. How are you handling Jamal Murray?
So the Murray thing, I'm getting less naturally from the Sims. I'm happy with that, getting 24%. And I have been projected higher than Stokastic, so I'm surprised that I'm getting that much less in the field relative to that, because that would make me think I'd get more. But I'm okay with that too. Again, not a great start for him. It is one of those things for Murray where I feel like you get a lot of narrative spinning the opposite way, where hey, he's back in Canada. He's also a player where there's been the anonymous quotes from other players about how it's easy to guard Jamal Murray now. At a certain point, maybe those whispers become something he wants to address and put down a good performance, but he's been really bad to start the year, 0.84 fantasy points per minute, only 20% usage, 21% assist rate. He's not so far playing like he does. Obviously, Jamal Murray can get hot, but I don't want to be on chalk Jamal Murray when it feels like he's not running well. So I'm okay with the sim giving me less, and that's the main thing for me. I don't need the narrative of him being in Canada, though that might matter more than I'm giving credit for.
Nah, it don't matter.
I know this is one of those, like, he's probably played there, like 5 times in his career. I would be curious to know if he's played well, but I wouldn't play him because he's played well in Canada, if that makes sense.
I don't even know where, is he from Toronto?
Just Canada.
Yeah,
he's
like,
from the six. He seems like he's from the six.
yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, I'm from the United States, and if I was in Maine and then I was in California, those aren't the
What
same
about Bret
places.
Hart? Bret Hart wouldn't lose in Canada.
It's true. That's true. Jamal Murray is a lot like Bret Hart.
It's just, so you could. He's from Kitchener, Canada. Is that near Toronto?
Honestly, Nikola Jokic is sort of the Bret Hart of all of this. He is sort of the excellence of execution. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Yeah, an hour and a half away from Toronto is Kitchener, so he's
okay.
90-minute drive. He's gonna have some friends and family there.
Sure. So anyway, Jamal Murray, I got 30%, so I think he looks good. But I'm not done with Denver. A little bit over the field on Christian Brown. A little over 20% of Aaron Gordon, but that's going to get adjusted, but I'm still going to be 2x the field easy. I have 30% of Michael Porter Jr. right now. Toronto stinks, but I've saved the best for last. 45% Nikola Jokic.
Wow. Okay. Also,
who wouldn't want it? Who wouldn't want it?
Would he be the Heartbreak Kid? Would he be the Shawn Michaels analogy?
He's like Sid.
What was he like? He ducks the matches. He lets like losing his smile.
Yeah, I like the comp.
MVP, Shawn Michaels an MVP caliber.
I thought you were talking about MVP, the wrestler. I was like,
no, he would not be a good.
What? Man, he just went from Shawn Michaels.
He's just so sexy, MVP wrestler.
I like it. Loves the crotch chop.
Yeah, there you go. I like Jokic today. I like the Bret Hart. I think he's a strong play. I got 29% ownership for him. Highest projected player on the slate. Think looks good. If you're playing battle royales, I saw John Warner in the chat. I don't know if it's a Bad Bros John Warner, but if it is, if you're playing a battle royale format for underdog today, I feel like Jokic going to be deservedly going 101 more often than not. Jokic strong play here. I feel like though in this kind of matchup against Toronto, where my concern is really just that 9-point favorites on the road. We talked about this before. Some blowout concern. Because Toronto, if they don't have Barrett, I really don't know how they keep up. Even if they do have Barrett, I don't know how they keep up. So I kind of feel like Porter should be more appealing in this kind of spot, just putting up a lot of points early. Murray would have the same logic too, but I got more than the field on Porter, and that's something to justify it.
All righty. I'm excited to have that much Jokic. I hope that doesn't go anywhere. If I'm going to take stands on people, give me Nikola Jokic against a shitty Toronto team to try to get the team like on the right path. Triple double incoming. I hope.
Can he do it in 3 quarters?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can he do enough to win a slate in 3 quarters? Would be the other question.
That's a different question. He can easily triple double in a half.
Yeah.
But he might not play the other. He might have 12, 12, and 12, and then it's over.
Toronto is so bad, man. Like Toronto, we talked about Scotty Barnes opening night or whatever, one of the first slates we did here. And I was like, Scotty Barnes, so excited to see him. And he's got nothing, and there's nobody else there doing anything on that team. And they look like the worst of the worst tanking already, unfortunately.
Well, we're waiting on the news for RJ Barrett. He may or may not be back. Seems like he is back. He was able to practice earlier. No one's getting any love on the DraftKings side for Toronto. Scotty Barnes is 20% owned on FanDuel, and I agree with it. He's 8,600 small forward, power forward there, so good positionality. I get why you would want to get to Scotty Barnes on FanDuel, and if I were playing there, I would be. However, Toronto on DraftKings, I have 1 share of RJ Barrett.
Yeah, it feels good. Another Canadian hero. RJ Barrett, I got 8%. So basically with the field there, 5% Pirtle. Didn't get any Scotty Barnes today, which I don't know if that's starting to import some of the new season projections and how that impacts things. I've been high on Scotty Barnes projection wise for about a year now. But I'm low on him today. Didn't get any exposure to him. I feel like if the game goes off, like part of me feels as though if you play Jokic, I would almost want to put a Barnes or Barrett with it, because like if Jokic gets 4 quarters of play, hits his true ceiling, somebody's got to do something there, and those guys are the most likely. But you don't have to get that cute with it. I think it's tough to project Barnes that well, besides seemingly on FanDuel.
Yeah, I see nothing else worth talking about on the Toronto side, so we can keep that moving because
Brady Dick chalk redemption maybe.
Yeah. Chicago Bulls 6.5-point dogs in Memphis, 232 total. 10% ownership to Zach LaVine is the only double-digit mark on DraftKings. However, Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Josh Giddey, and Patrick Williams are all between 10 and 20 on FanDuel. So much more appealing there, and I have no problems getting to any of those guys. They both graded out really well, or they all graded out really well in my optimal ratings. I don't have Zach LaVine on DraftKings. I do have my boy Josh Giddey, though. I've been getting to him every night, and it seems like it's not going to stop today.
Yeah, I forced myself to play some Giddy the other night because when you mentioned him, I was like, it's a good, Josh made a pretty good case. And he did fine. He's like, I think he's going to keep doing fine. He's got a projection of 31 from Stokastic today. I'm at 33.4, but it wasn't enough for me to get more than 4.7% of him. So he's the highest owned bull I have. Vooch, I thought I would have gotten a little bit more of because I have him decently projected. Got him at least over 40 by the barest of margins. Didn't really get him very much. Feels like kind of like a pay up for center night based on what the sim gave me to start. So didn't get Vooch enough, but I think he's an interesting play if you don't pay up at center. And Levine, don't really see the projection. Usage has been okay. I feel like this is kind of one of those teams where it's like nobody's going to get 30% usage. I don't know how you really force your way to one of these guys besides the ones that project okay.
Now, if you're looking at this from FanDuel, like I have Patrick Williams, Josh Giddey, Kobe White, all north of 10% optimal. So that ownership that's coming in, don't be afraid to grab some of it on the FanDuel side. They just have more advantageous pricing there. Like Patrick Williams is $1,000 cheaper than he is on DK. That's just a different guy altogether. Memphis has nobody appealing. 4% ownership to Desmond Bane is the high mark on DK. He's 9 on FanDuel. I don't have a single share of a Memphis Grizzly.
Yeah, I feel like Ja are getting ruled out and maybe bump Bane up enough to get there, but I agree. Nobody really priced here. Feels like it's not priced for Jackson to be back in, but he's also back in. Scottie Pippen Jr., I got 2% of him, so even still less than the field, but that was all I got. I got a little bit of Scottie Pippen. Everything else here feels like it's just not priced correctly. Even Edie especially is like really mispriced. It's just too expensive.
Yeah, I don't see anything here that you should want to get to. If Ja Morant gets ruled out, then you will certainly be finding some things that you should be getting to, and you should be ready to late swap this bad boy between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Either way, we continue. Houston Rockets, 2.5-point favorites in San Antonio, 218 total. Not a lot of love coming for this Houston team. Only guy in double digits anywhere is Fred VanVleet on FanDuel. Everybody else is single digits. I have a small amount of VanVleet on DraftKings, one individual share of Jabari Smith, but Houston pricing is not looking great for this spot.
Yeah, nothing really looks good here. Got a little bit less in the field of VanVleet. Got 1 or 2 lineups with Cam Whitmore. Nothing too crazy there. Which even I don't even know how that happened, but it did happen. That's all I've got here. Really, a team that's tough. Şengün losing minutes again. I talked about this. It was my fears with Şengün this year. Şengün this year was that Jabari Smith played some pretty competent small ball 5 last year. Now they're starting to carve a little bit of minutes away from Şengün late in games for Jabari. I don't think that happens every time, but if Şengün's running hot or not running hot or not doing what they feel like they need to do, you could see him lose closing minutes, which would suck. So nobody here projects that well for me, and VanVleet's passable. That's basically how I'd sum it up.
A little bit different on the San Antonio side. 10% ownership to Wemby, Sohan, and Chris Paul on FanDuel. 10% for the Barnacle of the Bay on DraftKings, Harrison Barnes. 20 to Jeremy Sohan at 5,600, and just 7 to Wemby. What are you doing with Chalk Jeremy Sohan?
Playing him, I guess, just playing him in line with things. He's playing well to start the year, has had pretty good usage, contributing in every category, rebounding at 15%, a rebound rate, 13% assist rate, 24% usage. Expected to level out with Chris Paul basically not shooting so far this year, but Sohan, I think at his price point, in fact, he contributes in multiple categories and does it pretty frequently. And actually, I've got him lower projected today. I've got him 0.92 fantasy points per minute. This year, he's at 1.01. So I like Sohan. I think he's a pretty valid play. He's the one I have the most of. Wemby, I like too, but didn't get crazy on it. Sohan's really the only one that's like a core part of my entire 150 lineup so far.
I have 45% of Sohan, so 2x the field. He's just too cheap for this role right now. The game should be competitive, only a 2.5-point line. They're at home. Job's his. He's playing a ton. So I have no problem getting to Jeremy Sohan, but Victor Wembanyama, come on down, brother. Join the team the same way Nikola Jokic is joining the team. 36% of Victor Wembanyama. I would give anything for the slate to start right now, and I had to lock in those 2 exposures because if I'm going to have that much Wemby and Jokic, I'm very excited to play the slate.
Yeah, I think it would be more fun if they were like a chalk center. You could really smash it in his face. You know, like if they had a Nick Richards of the slate that you can go
yeah.
to.
No, I would have just played Nick Richards like an asshole.
But yeah, Wemby, I like Wemby. I got Wemby a little bit lower than Stokastic does, but he's one of the top projected plays according to Stokastic, and I think it looks good. I just worry about him giving up a little too much ball handling time. I feel like has been the trend so far. He's only got 6% assist rate. We're talking about 20 compared to 21% last year. Just a faint concern, but it's very early.
Sure. I don't have much else here. A couple shares of Chris Paul, but nothing crazy. I don't really want any of like down the line San Antonio dudes.
Yeah, same.
Wait, what is that? Oh, never mind. Let's see. 3 games left, 12 minutes to go. Perfect opportunity to tell you guys about everything. That's what we've been doing for the past 45 minutes, explaining everything, but this is specifically everything. I gave you a deal for $1 for the NBA core package before. This one's a little bit different. You can get 10% off our all access package. Covers every sport, every tool, every single thing that exists on Stokastic. You would get it. Projections, ownership across NBA, NFL, MLB, obviously not right now. Well, sort of right now. NHL, MMA. Speaking of, shout out to Robert Whitaker's face, which crumbled in the hands of Hamzat Chimaev this past weekend. Disgusting. He's going to need 10% off of everything that he does moving forward because his ability to work is going to go down. You guys can get 10% off of our all access package by signing up using the promo code everything. 10% off in perpetuity. It's not just for a month or for a year. As long as you maintain that subscription, it will not go away. 10% off the top line. Can't beat it, guys. Come join us. 3 to go, but only 1 on DraftKings. Utah Jazz, 12-point dogs in Dallas, 232 total. Single-digit ownership across the board on DraftKings for everyone from Utah. We are getting 25% ownership to Colin Sexton on FanDuel. Probably come in a little bit lower than that if I'm you guys. I don't see an individual dude from Utah that I actually want, but I have like 6 of them in at least one lineup.
That's exactly where I'm at with it. I have 6 guys between 0.7% and 4%. And Markkanen the 4%. I think he's the strongest play here. Decent projection on him. Don't think he works terribly well with the slate, but he's got dual position eligibilities on DraftKings, so I think that makes sense well enough. And Walker Kessler looks okay. Lakers trade rumors is going to make him really play motivated to get out there. But Walker Kessler, center. Again, if you're not paying up for one of the expensive guys, I think he's a valid center to play in those other kinds of builds, but really nothing to love for Utah either, which again, really only 2 teams I feel like we were like, lots of love here. Everybody else, they're just getting kind of smatterings.
Yeah, like I have a share of Keontae George, a share of Taylor Hendricks, a share of Colin Sexton, a little bit of Walker Kessler, a share of Lauri Markkanen. Like it's bleak, man. But it also doesn't look like a good spot. Utah stinks. They're 12-point dogs. They're the biggest underdog on the DraftKings slate, at least. So I don't mind not having a team that's terrible against Dallas in Dallas. The question becomes, what do we do with Dallas? 14% ownership to Kyrie across both sites, and then basically 14% ownership to Luka Doncic, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively. I'm under the field on everybody from Dallas, but I also have 7 guys from Dallas.
Yeah, I'm getting a good amount of Dallas guys with the field, but a little bit lower on most of them. Guy I'm the lowest on relatively, well, I guess it would be Gafford, but besides that, it'd be Luka. I'm lowest on Luka, 5% ownership compared to 13% in the projected ownership by Stokastic right now. I think he's sort of a casualty of the slate for me, where I do like Trae Young, as I mentioned, a good amount. The projection looks good for him. If I'm not paying up that money, I'd rather pay up for Jokic, so he's projected better. So Luka kind of in no man's land for me, but he's being owned enough that there's really not a reason for me to force my way there. So I imagine I'll keep staying low on Luka. A little bit more than the field of Kyrie, which I think makes sense given being low on Luka. Everything else here, like Klay Thompson projects well. Feel like this matchup, big spread, favoring Dallas, feels like the kind of game where he can get going, especially given that Utah does not defend a 3 well at all. So Klay Thompson, I feel like an interesting tournament play, but only got him 4.7% of the time. So kind of holding hands with the field, I feel like, on everybody here besides Luka.
John Isaac officially ruled out. RJ Barrett will play.
Okay, RJ Barrett. So some chance of staying in. Only losing by 20 to Denver is now in the cards for Toronto.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say for Dallas. Like, if I got a bunch of Luka, I wouldn't care. I just happen to have Jokic and Wemby at this moment. If it were Luka, I'd be just as happy. But I really just don't have a lot of Dallas here outside of Kyrie and 12% of my lineups. Everybody else is single digits. So under the field on Washington, under the field on Lively. Dallas is just going to handle Utah. I think they're going to be able to spread it out. All right, 2 to go. For everybody that's playing on DraftKings, these 2 games are not on the slate. This is a FanDuel specific conversation for the 11-game slate on FanDuel. Okay? Got it? Good. Live before lock coming up next, and they'll be able to take all your questions. Lakers, 4-point dogs in Phoenix, 228 total. There is not a lot of love coming to this game. I actually really like it in for late swap possibilities. Highest owned guy in the entire game is Devin Booker at 6%. I think this is a really interesting game where if you're paying attention at 7 and 7:30 and 8 and 8:30 and you're making your swaps and making your swaps, the lineups that are starting to fall a little bit, I think are going to naturally swap out your pay up options that are available to get to your Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Durant, Booker, because these guys aren't all that owned. So if you have a lineup that is like mildly underperforming, late swapping is going to swap you to some of these low owned pay up dudes. So I actually like the idea of getting to Durant and Booker, AD and LeBron. I just don't think it would come naturally in my build. I think I'd end up getting way over the field on them as the day went on.
Yeah, I mean, I think AD and LeBron look well projected today. I mean, obviously, I'm still looking at the DK late slate salaries I just pulled in one site. But I think the Lakers side looks pretty well projected relative to the matchup. Phoenix defensively, it's certainly not a team you're afraid of, but not a team that you're trying to play into. Should be down pace by a little bit for him. But I think all the core guys for the Lakers project pretty well. So I think Reeves is in play. Like you mentioned, the star players being guys that could hopefully bail you out on FanDuel, I would get that. But Reeves, Russell, Rui, I think all reasonable enough plays with some amount of floor and maybe some ceiling in this matchup.
Highest optimal rate I got of anybody here was Booker, 10% on FanDuel. Shooting guard, small forward, 8,400. I think he's just a little underpriced here in this spot. And I expect Phoenix to win this game since they dropped that first one. I actually have them as like a point better favorites than what we're seeing in the market. So I'm a big believer in Booker tonight. It's not going to matter for me on DraftKings, but kind of like him as a sneak option in GPPs.
Yeah, hey, Booker can always go off.
And finally, Portland. 13-point dogs, the real biggest underdog on today's slate. Taking on Sacramento in Sacramento, 230 total. 22% ownership coming into Anthony Simons and no ownership coming into anyone else. I completely agree with it. He's 6,600. If this game is competitive, you'd think he's doing a little bit more offensively. Jeremy Grant's been carrying a lot of weight so far. But as I look at this one, Simons pulling that ownership, I think is deserved.
Yeah, I like Simons. I think I have him the highest projected out of all these guys. Jeremy Grant, not too far behind. Ayton, not too far behind. But yeah, Simons I'd have for 35.1 DK points. Usages are good for him for the most part. Assist rate, we know he contributed in multiple categories. Not adding a lot defensively for the FanDuel scoring, I would think, but still, one of the ways I think they can hang in this game would be Simons having some increased production. And really, I think those three, it all comes down. If Grant, Simon, and Ayton have great games, maybe they don't get dusted by Sacramento, even though most likely Alcon does look like getting dusted by Sacramento.
And I don't have anything else here that looks super interesting from Portland. You can make a case that DeAndre Ayton is like a little underowned, but at the same time, it's one center on FanDuel. So like it's not a good case. And then the Sacramento side, 16% ownership to DeRozan. And then like around 8 for Sabonis, Murray, and Monk. Pretty light on Fox. Do you see anything that's interesting on Sacramento? I'm not that big of a believer in DeRozan. I actually think Sabonis is the guy that's underrepresented. Sabonis has power forward eligibility on FanDuel. That's massive.
Yeah, Sabonis, I heard you talk about that on the morning show. And yeah, Sabonis, I think with power forward eligibility would look really appealing. The fact too, one of the concerns I think we had talking about Sacramento before they had played was the concern of Sabonis maybe getting less assists upside. Still at a 24% assist rate to start the year, 1.34 fantasy points per minute. So like he's getting enough work overall that he's not being killed by DeRozan, which is really my big concern from DeRozan. Now he can dominate at the elbow. But I feel like for Sabonis, the best play here, but Fox not unplayable. DeRozan have projected the least out of the three, but I think he still would be cusp playable for for the DK late slate / FanDuel.
Oh, Jordan, I'm on that. Give me 1 second. I am currently the host in our Zoom call.
Oh, you've been promoted.
Something like that. Make host. Got it. All right, done. I want to point one thing out first. It doesn't have anything to do with Portland and Sacramento, but just in case anybody wants to use this as an actionable item prior to 7 o'clock, Jonas Valanciunas started the second half against Cleveland in their last game. Didn't start the game, but started the second half over Bub Carrington. It wouldn't be crazy if they wanted to start Joe Val against Clint Capella. So it's possible that we get a Wizards lineup that has Joe Val in at center. Keep an eye on it. You'll be able to swap it. It's not going to be problematic. There's only Indy and Orlando is locking before it. So like it's probably not going to matter too much to you. You'll be able to handle it. Something to keep in mind. He's 6K on DraftKings, so like I don't think it's unlocking value in any major way. Just something to keep your eye on. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here? This one is in the books.
No, I think it's a fun slate. I still am going to be a believer today on the paying down a little bit for your Tatums and your Trae Youngs, but I like the slate. I think it's a fun one. I think you don't have to necessarily die on a hill of chalk today, which is always a positive, and some stars as well. Lots of pay up options. So hopefully something unique takes it down today.
Hopefully it's me, folks. I will see you guys at the top of the fadeaway on DraftKings tonight. You guys can fight over the NFL money. I'll keep the basketball money all to myself. NBA live before lock is coming up next. Spags, thank you. First, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Chris Spags. Also, hopefully this is okay and Jordan won't yell at me, but I do have an NBA channel where I'm now doing streams before this one. So at 4 o'clock, doing a little bit of an NBA video. So it's at Splash Play NBA, and I'm going to drop it in the chat in case anybody wants to check me out there. Because, you know, Josh, it's really easy to build a YouTube channel from scratch. So we're doing that because I didn't want to do overlapping with football. So we got a brand new Splash Play NBA channel. Please check it out. For the love of God, it's in the chat right now.
There we go, everybody. Go check out Spags' Splash Play NBA channel. And go check me out at the top of the fadeaway. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Good luck. Bye.
On us, we don't have the pressure. Oh, the mics are hot, so okay, very warm. They're not even lukewarm, which is weird. Why is it Luke? I don't understand. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, presented by Stokastic. We are on the Stokastic YouTube channel. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. I am joined, along with my good friend here, Fantasy Tips Matt Belman. we're excited to be breaking it all down. We're not going to do any Buffalo Bill impersonations. I'm not going to do any songs, no dancing,
We're not?
no kerflufflery. No, absolutely none of it. Even though I just used the word kerfuffery, so whatever. How are you doing, my dude?
I'm good, man. Always happy to be on here with you Monday. Almost Monday night, though. We got football, basketball, and baseball tonight. It's like the sports trilogy. So, could be worse.
Yeah, I fired up some bets for absolutely everything. I'm very tired. I feel like that's all I've been doing today is going into tales and writing semi-novels, I would say, explaining out some of my plays. Got to jump on Kyle Kerm's show. He's almost to 100K subs over on his YouTube channel. I know Spags just plugged his. Let me just throw it out there for my friend Kyle as well. Go follow him, subscribe to him. He does a lot of late night betting content. I do it over at Odd Shopper. You can find Kyle Kerms over there in the YouTube streets as well. Really appreciate everything he does, and always enjoyed. I mean, I got to cover 3 sports before this, and now I get to break down NBA DFS, my absolute favorite thing to do with my friend Matt. Jordan Klein, whatever. He's behind the virtual glass like he always is, just being mean to me and not letting me in Zoom calls, but whatever. You can make excuses for it, Jordan. It is what it is. No excuses. You guys should be utilizing tip-off 2-4. I'm just going to bring it up here from the onset. I'm sure the guys brought it up on the previous show, but for $1, you got today and you got tomorrow. I don't want to wait 40 minutes and then bring it up to you now. I want you to be able to utilize the Sims as we're talking about the Sims. I want you guys utilizing it now and tomorrow. And then, yeah, it'll go to full price on that 30th if you keep your sub, but we would love for you to try it out. Maybe you get that big bank right off the bat, which has been more commonplace this season in the NBA streets than I can remember. Through 4 or 5 slates, we've had a lot of first place W's, a lot of top threes, and, well, the Awesemo HOF, that is the Hall of Fame. I'll tie that in here for you too, Jordan, right from the onset. If you guys finish in the top 3 of a contest of 5,000 or more, you can get yourself a month of The Sims. You can also, making $20,000 or more, get one of these cool rings, one of those flashing little rings that will be up there for you. Stokastic.com/HOF. Getting it all out here from the get-go because, well, we're waiting on a little bit of news, but mainly I want to give you guys cool stuff and free stuff, or in the case of Tip-Off 2-4, stuff for $1. Yes, get all of the fixings here at Stokastic for today, for tomorrow in the NBA streets for $1. We'll, of course, have the NFL stream coming up after this. But, Matt, we've got some interesting ownership here at the top because, well, I thought we would be running into a spot where, hey, Larry Nance, nobody's going to be looking at him because he didn't see the floor yesterday. I feel uncomfortable now that he's like mega chalk, but outside of that, we got news that DeAndre Hunter, he's going to be out yet again. And Okongwu, you got to think that Larry Nance finds floor time here today at a low cost. I would be shocked to see him not in this rotation today, and that was kind of the thing keeping me away from Capella props. But Capella, the most popular play on the slate, we're going to be talking about Atlanta a lot today, aren't we?
Yeah, it's impossible not to. That game just really pops, especially with the guys that are out for Atlanta. Already was an appealing game, outside of that. So when you added a couple injuries, it just starts to look like it's impossible to get away from. And as far as Nance goes, I mean, 3K, I don't know how you just don't jam him in and then look to get different elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you at this point in time. I mean, the Sims, they're going to be doing a lot of the work for us. Jordan Klein behind the turn glass, the turnstiles, the whatever you want to call them. Jordan doesn't know what to call them. He doesn't even know how to get us into a Zoom room. We are very much going to be utilizing him, though, to hopefully learn how to do that on the Sims tool in the next 54 minutes as we break down this entire slate. I'm very excited about it. But yeah, Larry Nance is going to be a big part of the portfolio here for a lot of people. I think, yeah, pretty unavoidable here. And we'll break down the ins and outs of it here. Any other news that you're waiting on here for this slate? We have 9 games on DraftKings. FanDuel, a little bit different where we have the 2 late games in addition to it. I'm playing a little bit on both sites, a lot more over on DK, kind of just trying to keep it to one as I'm working through stuff here on this show. But Indy and Orlando locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Don't think we have any news that we're really waiting on there outside of the Franz Wagner piece, which is gigantic. But we'll know that piece. Anything else in the evening that you're going to be waiting on?
I think it's Josh Hart. That's the big news I'm waiting on. Not that it's huge, but for this slate, it's not like we have a ton to wait on. I think Hart is one of the most important.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the piece that I was going to allude to. I think Washington could do some weird stuff with their starting lineup, depending on what Atlanta does with their starting lineup. I mean, I think what they do with their starting lineup is what they did yesterday and just put Risa Shea back in there. But there are chances. I mean, there were some really good tournament plays yesterday. I thought Vic Krejci and Garrison Matthews were both guys that I wanted to get to. Garrison Matthews set it on fire, 3,200 knockdown shots. Probably won't be doing it on a 9-game slate today for what it's worth, but we will be breaking down this Atlanta situation in depth. But as always, we start on the expensive end here, and I start talking about spend ups. We work our way down. We talk about some of the most owned pieces in our lineups, but we have Luka, we have Jokic. They're up there north of 11K. 11K that we're looking at now to have access to these guys. And partially, I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but Denver's 0-2. They're taking on a Toronto team as pretty big favorites, and they have a very thin bench. We could just see these starters play a lot more minutes going forward here, and I think that obviously has me siding with the Jokic side, especially when we're talking about a 3% difference. The thing is, we have Clint Capella, who showed up in our lives and is the most popular play on the slate. Maybe that trims down a little ownership on Jokic. I doubt it, but amongst the spend ups, I am very much in Jokic's corner, very much here for any shares that I can possibly land on of Giannis and Victor Wembanyama, although I have like 6% and 4% of them respectively. And Jokic, yeah, he's in 35% of my lineups here at the moment, my largest stand by far in the 10K range. What stands out to you up here?
I love Jokic also. He's definitely my favorite spend up option. You know, he gets about as good of a matchup as you can get right now. Toronto, so soft on the inside. Jokic should just carve in this spot. My only worry is kind of what you talked about, but to the other side of it, like they're 0-2. Wouldn't be surprised if they just rolled here. Toronto stinks and Denver plays tomorrow. So if you get into a situation where they're up huge in the fourth quarter, like he's not going to play. So I think that's the blowout concern is real here. Toronto is that bad. I don't think Denver is great. And Denver's bench will probably keep Toronto in this game, but it's a slight concern for me, especially when you're paying such a premium.
Yeah, Denver playing Brooklyn tomorrow. There's going to be no Ben Simmons for that one, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. We could see some real dusty stuff here on the back-to-back, especially with how many minutes these starters are playing. I think they got to handle business tonight, and then we'll kind of worry about it later. I can't imagine that I'm going to dock anything on the Jokic side when he's been playing right around 35, 36 minutes here in competitive spots. I've got him for north of 60. We've got him north of 60 here at Stokastic today. I think Luka's at least interesting, but Utah, I mean, they've got an even wider spread than what we have on the Jokic side of things. We have point guard only eligibility. We're waiting on John Morant. I think he more than likely plays here as well. That's the other major piece of news in addition to Josh Hart. But currently I've had John Morant in my lineup all day, mainly because we just saw this same situation, him with the Q tag. So maybe this time around it flips and he ends up out. But that game is at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific on DraftKings. Matters that we try to figure out exactly what that news looks like, but I think John Morant a little bit more accessible for me at 9,200. Chicago by far number one in pace in the NBA currently. So like amongst contrarian pieces in this 9K and up range, I love John Morant for tournaments purely because Chicago over 110 possessions per 48 minutes. It's a very small sample size, so I'm not going to go completely crazy there, but they're up in pace. They've gotten worse defensively as they add Josh Giddey to the party. And John Morant has a Q tag next to him, which we know can mute that ownership. Jaren Jackson Jr. is back, but God, I love John Morant for tournaments. We're going to see 30 plus minutes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm just trying to make sure that my mic is on and playback because I know that was an issue.
0.08% owned. I mean, again, these minutes are just hard to pinpoint for some of the guys. And again, we've had some weird game scripts for what it's worth here on the John Morant side of things. They won by what? A bazillion? No, they lost by a bazillion to Houston. Then they were up by 13 or 14, and John Morant didn't have to really go too hard in that one. But he has just been filling it up in terms of assists. And yeah, again, this is a guy who's at like 1% that I'm just making a case to get to like, you could get to anything of him and be in a good spot there. Damian Lillard, 9,300, completely unowned, but on a back-to-back. I'm more inclined to go to the John Morant side. Let's talk Trae Young and Jason Tatum because these are the actual chalk pieces. Trae Young, no DeAndre Hunter out there, no Onyeka Okongwu, but it is yet another shootout projected here as we have Washington on the other side of this one. They are massive favorites, and Trae Young, sure, they just had to go toe-to-toe with Oklahoma City last night. A lot of teams on like 3 and 4 and back-to-backs early on in this young NBA season, but I got to think Trae Young is also pretty darn good chalk on today's slate. We have him a little bit over-owned. Jason Tatum coming in a little bit under-owned. They've been yet to play a competitive spot. They're 9.5-point favorites at home against Milwaukee. How do you feel about those 9K options that are pulling some ownership?
Yeah. So first off, as far as Trae Young goes, hard not to like everyone in that game. I'm seemingly getting to more of everyone around Trae Young and less of Trae Young himself, which I'm totally fine with. But, Trae Young, obviously, as you mentioned, they're coming off a back-to-back, but we have a bunch of that on this slate, so you can't really downgrade them too much. As far as the 9K range goes, I'm not getting to like a ton of it just because I'm getting to the expensive guys in Luka, or not really Luka, in Jokic. I'm getting to a ton of Jokic, a little bit of Wemby. So Trae Young is my most exposed in that range. I'm like right at the field, but I'm not going over with any of them.
Okay. I'm going to be right around 25%, it looks like, with Trae Young here. I'm finishing out another run of Sims here. We're going to have to probably do a couple of reruns here. Indy and Orlando. I'm going to be sure that we cover that game with like 10, 15 minutes left, just to make sure that we have plenty of time to go over that before lineups lock, talk about some of the news that we're going to be paying attention to and some iterations of it. Washington, do they continue to start Valanciunas, or do they decide to go to Valanciunas? Do they keep starting Sar here? Kyle Kuzma. It's just such a weird type lineup here. If you're going to have a true big like Clint Capella out there, I got to think Washington might make some adjustments as opposed to some of their previous games already. And then, of course, the Josh Hart, Ja Morant pieces that are gigantic and looming. But let's move our way down the board here. And as we start to get into this 8K range, the mainly guy that sticks out is Scotty Barnes, who's been pretty disappointing if you've been firing him up this season. But this is like the textbook buy low spot on a guy who should be smashing, who's been getting all the minutes. And if this Denver game stays competitive, I got to think Scotty Barnes is a huge part of that. I mean, this guy he is their premier player there in Toronto, despite, Emmanuel quickly hurt, RJ Barrett out still here as well. Jakob Poeltl and Kelly Olynyk at the center position somewhat paid, but Scotty Barnes is your premier player. 36, 37 minutes his last two. You give me 36, 37 here against Denver, and with as much Jokic as I have, I feel very comfortable just pushing it to the limit. Scotty Barnes, my highest owned player above 9K.
Yeah, I respect that. It's been a disappointment, as you mentioned, rostering Scotty Barnes. I am with you that it's like a buy low, but his price hasn't come down. So really, you're just buying low on the ownership. And yes, I'm fine with that. I've been doing it, but it's no different than the past couple slates. If Toronto keeps this game competitive, I imagine that he's really good here. Denver's bench is awful, as I mentioned. So not going to be surprised if this game's more competitive than one might think. So I'm with you all the way around.
Yeah, I hope I didn't say that I thought RJ Barrett was out. I was saying that RJ Barrett was out for the previous 3 games for Scotty Barnes. I don't expect RJ Barrett to play a ton of minutes. I mean, what's the minute projection that we have in for him right now? I've got
29 to 30.
I have him at 27. So we have him at 30 minutes, 1% ownership. Again, this is a guy that eventually will cut in a little bit, but Scotty Barnes, I mean, the one nice thing is that maybe you have somebody who can knock down a shot and help out the assist rate a little bit. I mean, he's averaged rate at 5 assists a game, 6, 5, and 4 through his first 3. I think that there's lots of opportunities for Scotty Barnes to get other guys involved. And, you're removing Bruce Brown. Abaji's the guy who's going to be taking the big minutes dip, you would think, here with RJ Barrett back. But I still think Grady Dick gets enough run out here. Quickly officially out. He was doubtful coming in. I just saw that go through on where. And then Davion Mitchell should continue to start here at the point. But we'll see that official lineup come through. Again, that doesn't lock until 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So plenty of time to be able to work through it. Let's move down the board, shall we, where this 8K range is kind of littered with different tournament shots, but nothing that's really pulling chalk outside of the Scotty Barnes number over on FanDuel, I suppose, at 8,600, where I can definitely get behind that one. Over on DK, 9,100, he's not going to be pulling as much ownership. I'm going back and forth between both sites, trying to talk through everything for the people. But on DK, Jalen Brunson, 18.64% ownership here in our last run. I'm actually going to refresh this and update it in my sheet. But how do you feel about the Knicks here with Josh Hart questionable? Because even if he ends up in, this is not a usage guy by any means. And I think Jalen Brunson, Probably helps to have Josh Hart out on the floor as opposed to Miles McBride. If he ends up getting more popular here with the omission of Josh Hart, I think that would be kind of silly because Miles McBride can be the guy to pull away that usage. But it just kind of depends on what Tibbs rolls out there. I doubt we get like, maybe we do get like a campaign de facto start and he keeps Miles McBride coming off the bench just as like a sixth man. We haven't seen that iteration. Obviously, there's some new pieces there in New York. There's some familiarity that we have with them and with Tibbs as well. But I think that there's different ways that could work out if Josh Hart does end up sitting. Either who, how do you feel about Jalen Brunson and the rest of this 8K range?
I don't love that game, Cleveland, New York game. Now, if Hart's out, I think it makes the Knicks look slightly more appealing, I guess. But like, it's not like Hart's a huge usage guy. So I don't really give a huge bump to anyone but McBride. As far as other guys like in that price range, I like Jalen Johnson a ton. He's a little bit less expensive, so maybe I shouldn't have included him. But outside of him, like I'm not really getting to anyone in that range. It's more for me to spend up guys and then, finding value.
Yeah, well, let's just jump to the value then, because I feel like we're just kind of trimming down, and every slate should be just handled a little bit differently. So Jordan Klein, I want you to pull up Atlanta. I think that this is just really the elephant in the room. This is the most important part for us to get through. Larry Nance, it's kind of uncomfortable to me. We haven't seen him in the rotation whatsoever to start off this season, but Noah Kongwu, there is Gaye that could end up being the guy. He played 3 minutes yesterday. Maybe they decide to go to him instead. He has power forward eligibility, but I think we're all assuming Larry Nance gets dusted off for the first time here. And I think that that's just an assumption that, like, if we knew that he was going to be the backup, we would probably see 65% ownership on Larry Nance. But because there's still that tiny little bit of uncertainty, I think we're seeing it somewhat muted for a guy who's a flat 3K and has been, a decent enough fantasy performer in years past for our purposes. Whether that was his tenure at the Lakers, not so great at times, tried to take too many shots on him through the playoffs with the Pelicans, but that's a different story for a different day. They ended up doing the right thing and getting away from JaVale in a lot of those spots. But man, how do you feel about these chalky Atlanta pieces? Let's kind of parse through it. Clint Capella, how much of him are you landing on?
I am landing on, I just did an update, so give me 1 second.
Oh, you're just fine.
I am getting to like 40%. So I'm right at the field with Capella. I'm getting to so much Nance though, like 85% Nance. And again, I just think it's a free square at 3K. And maybe you're right. Maybe his ownership is more, is a little bit squashed because he hasn't played it all this year. So in turn, it's a little bit riskier, but I just think there's so much value in the 3K guy. I can't get away from it. Capella, I'm right at the field. No issues there.
But what I'm saying is Mohamed Gaye is still flat 3K himself.
Try to see if I'm getting to any of him. I am not.
Played 3 minutes in a blowout. They didn't have Larry Nance come out. I'm assuming, and I think we're all assuming, and I think projections are assuming that Larry Nance ended up sitting yesterday in order for him to be utilized today, knowing that Okongwu was going to get a maintenance day. But maybe that's just me, and maybe Gaye ends up being the guy there. And I just want to throw out that there is a chance that Gaye ends up being the backup center here.
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm.
It's so uncomfortable to some extent. I mean, I currently have 100% Larry Nance in my DK lineups. I'm just trying to find ways because I'm playing 171 lineups or something, playing one big lineup, then, in the 170, the 20 max and the 150. But I got to think that Larry Nance is somebody that you should be pushing it to the limit on. If he sees the floor in that first rotation, you're going to feel so much better about your night just jamming him. You're not going to like it very much if it ends up being Gaia. And that's where, like, I'm trying to talk myself into maybe trimming it into like 90. And I don't need even like play 10% Gaia. I could play like 2, 5. I could find ways in like chalkier builds to get to him and probably be okay with it. I just don't want to have any stone left unturned. How about David Roddy here too at a flat 3K? Because again, these are just such interesting plays. Dyson Daniels, Risa Shea, Clint Capella, Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, all of them pulling currently. tons of ownership, as they should be. I mean, look at our pool ownership for them, north of 20% across the board, projected for 20% ownership across the board. I mean, do we even want to like try to prioritize them? Do you have any issues with the ownership in any of those or on any of those players?
No, I don't think you're crazy to think about those guys. Like, none of them stand out. But to your point, like Roddy played 20 minutes yesterday.
Yep.
Nance did not. So there's something to be said for that. I don't think it matters too much, but I mean, if Nance is a DMP again today, I don't think anyone should be like, oh my God, that's the craziest thing to ever happen.
Yeah, I'm just worried that Larry Nance, like, I don't know, Clint Capella, 22 minutes. Oklahoma City is just ridiculous. They're number one in terms of adjusted defensive rating on dunks and threes to start off this season. They've looked incredible on both sides of the floor. I mean, Chet Holmgren looks like he's made a jump up, which is very, very scary for the rest of the NBA here at the moment. The guy is a two-way monster at this current point in time, but I'm at least just trying to think of different iterations, because you go through the box score from yesterday, it got so wonky towards the end of it that I'm not going to say there's nothing to mine out of it, but the closing lineup yesterday was David Roddy, Vit Krejci, Garrison Matthews, Keaton Wallace, and Mohamed Gaye. So as you look at those five specifically, they checked in at the 3-minute mark and closed out. Before that, obviously there was no Larry Nance at any point in time. So like the Gaye thing is me just basically saying, what if Atlanta, because we haven't seen Larry Nance take the floor yet, maybe they just are putting him in bubble wrap, or I don't know what's going on, because it's weird to go get him and not play him. He's been a serviceable NBA play for quite some time, but I'm just trying to play some kind of devil's advocate and look at the rest of these pieces. And yesterday I thought in tournaments, it was pretty advantageous to go after Garrison Matthews, to go after Vit Krejci. Not so much of a need today. Somebody put in chat that there are no questions about it. I just want to look at David Roddy as like the main guy at flat 3K, that if I'm not going to be jamming Larry Nance, or maybe I am playing Larry Nance and, you know, they try to, you know, allow for both of them on the floor. I just want to throw out scenarios where we can get away from Mega Chalk Nance, who, again, I think there's just a lot of volatility with, where the range of outcomes for minutes, I would say, is like 0 to 22. Like, that's a gigantic piece of this slate.
Yeah, I think your point about bubble wrap is like, I guess what I was trying to say that I couldn't really get out. Like,
yeah,
we don't know that they're just not playing this dude. Like, why has he not played at all anyways? I think that the garbage time last game, I don't hold too much credence with, but like, it's a little surprising he hasn't touched the floor at all this year anyways. Like, as you mentioned, he's a valuable NBA rotation guy. He's not a star, but like, I know Cavs fans love Nance and would love to have him back. So he's like a guy that can give you minutes. I think he does that tonight, but again, I don't think you can be shocked at anything as far as he goes. We're on the same page.
Yeah, Richie, we got our guy Richie behind the projections doing a great job. He's in chat. Roddy played directly behind Jalen Johnson, so there is a path to Roddy sliding in at the 4 and just moving Jalen Johnson to the 5 for stretches. And that's what I'm worried about here, especially if, I mean, the amount of Valanciunas that you're going to see out there, I think that's going to be mainly where they want to have Clint Capella out there. When it's Alex Sarr, just from what I've seen so far, I mean, I've unfortunately watched some Washington basketball against your Cleveland Cavaliers last time. Actually, that was enjoyable, let me tell you. But there is no doubt that there are certain iterations of this Atlanta lineup that just are not what you expect. It feels as though we're going to get some kind of ridiculousness coming our way. But amongst the chalk pieces here, I feel pretty comfortable about Risache with his positionality, with the secure minutes that we saw yesterday, 27 of them, going from 19 minutes back-to-back to 27 on a back-to-back. I think they keep him somewhat close to that number here as well. I think there's also the assumption I'm making where he would close. He ended up getting pulled for that closing lineup of nobodies. And so I think Risache had a chance to potentially get to 30 if that game didn't blow out. I think you had a chance to get Dyson Daniels up there to like 36, 37. They waved the white flag, if you will, there, and they definitely found ways to get everybody off the floor and get ready for today once they were down infinity to Oklahoma City. But that'll be something that happens a lot this season. How do you feel about the Clint Capella ownership, though? Because this is the guy that everybody's assuming is going to see some type of a surplus. And I want to repeat, we are And our minutes right now for Clint Capella, we have him for 26. I love that minutes projection, and he's still showing up in north of 50% of my lineups, 44% ownership, highest owned center. What are you planning to do with him?
Man, it's a tough one, honestly, because like the spot's great. You got Noah Kongwu. Hawks are a little bit shorthanded. It still is a back-to-back for Capella. I just don't know how many more minutes he's going to play. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he needs to necessarily play more in this spot, but if he's getting a ton of ownership boost because of that, like that makes me maybe want to lean away from him. Again, like in multi-entry type stuff, if I were playing 150, I'd probably be at the field. And like the one lineup I play in the 888 tonight, I don't know if I'm going to play him.
Tough. It's actually legitimately tough. I love the super ceiling of Jokic, and I love that they're 0-2, and I love that they're going up against Toronto and another true center in Jakob Poeltl, and Jokic is going to do everything he can to get them off the schneid, I think, and that's where I feel pretty good about the center position there. We also have Şengün, who's been relatively quiet the last two. Not a great matchup going up against Victor Wembanyama, but pretty easy around the board for everybody else there for Houston. Wemby himself at 10-5. We know what that ceiling can be for him. Jared Allen, I think, is interesting for the Knicks. I think Karl Anthony Towns, 8,400, even against the most difficult front court in the NBA. There are some viability there.
Cleveland's good, man.
Cleveland's really good. Your front court is really, really good. And if Donovan Mitchell can just carry the offense for long stretches, eventually Evan Mobley's going to have to knock down shots from the outside. If that day comes, Cleveland's going to look so damn good on paper. Obviously you got to compete with Boston, and that's never fun. But overall, I am pretty optimistic for your Cleveland Cavaliers here this season. But just to round out the conversation on Atlanta, your three favorite pieces of chalk, and then if they're like your favorite contrarian piece, because I think David Roddy at the 3K end probably ends up being my favorite contrarian piece.
Yeah, so my favorite three pieces just overall chalky are Risa Shea, Daniels, and Nance. Pretty easy. After that, it's Capella and Trae Young. But I like the first three guys I listed a lot better. As far as like a contrarian guy from Atlanta, I like your Roddy call. I'm with that. Like he played, there's certainly minutes that could be had here. I'll ride with you on that one. I think, and if you wanted to transition elsewhere, it's totally fine. But I wanted to ask you on the other side of this game, what's your thoughts on Jordan Poole?
Oh, shit. We'll get there. Because right now my brain, the amount of Jordan Poole you have is going to also matter on site between the two. Let me see how much I ended up on DK with. Because, I'm rated around the field. 14%. He's 15% owned there. FanDuel, I'm nervous because I think as I was looking at it a little bit earlier here, let me find it. I'm just kind of going between two sheets. And yeah, I'll jump into the Discord here as well and take some questions there. We got 2.4K people hanging out with us. Smash that like button. It would be helpful. Yeah, I have 38% on FanDuel. I hate that. I hate that so much. I'm going to have to get away from some of it. But what was his tag on? Yeah, 7,400 on FanDuel. Whereas on DraftKings, he is sitting at 7,300. So it makes sense. I'm playing both sites. I'm trying to get some exposure to some different types of builds and some players that I might not be getting over on DK. Obviously, I'm a little bit, barely under the field on Jordan Poole on DK. But on FanDuel, I think there's something to be said for it there. And also, this is a great spot for Washington, which is weird to say. This is a game that could be competitive with Atlanta being on a back-to-back. So I'm with you. I had the same order too for that. Risa Shea, my favorite piece of chalk from Atlanta because of the positionality and the price tag, assuming that he continues to start, followed by getting to Dyson Daniels, followed by getting to Larry Nance, where, again, I think that's going to be a big part of this slate. First guy to check in yesterday, David Roddy, for what it's worth. Just throwing it out there from the Atlanta side. He was the first guy to checked in for Jalen Johnson. Did Jalen Johnson have early foul trouble? One foul, only one. Go me. All right, we got super chats to catch up on. Jacob Dunn, $2, 80% lineup. Michael Porter Jr. talked me out of it. I thought Michael Porter Jr. looked a lot better before we got confirmation that DeAndre Hunter was going to be out. I think positionality-wise for Michael Porter Jr. with small forward, power forward on DK, he's somebody with a high boom percentage. His ownership is right around 15, 16%. He's sub 6K. I just don't think you need to make that large of a stand. I mean, if you're playing in like 20 max and you say, I want to play 80% Michael Porter Jr., I guess I get it, but I probably would talk you out of it. It's pretty easy to get to 25, 30% Michael Porter Jr. in 20 max or in 150. And I think long-term, you're going to be better off with a piece like that than just saying, this is the day he goes out and scores 30 real points.
Totally with you there.
Yeah. It's kind of straightforward for that one. Austin Tilley, welcome to the team. Love to see the badge in uniform there. Purple-plus, something like that. $2. Appreciate you. Top 5% with the tools each day. How can I hit number one? How can you hit number one? Well, you can check out that contest simulator, which I think is the most underutilized tool that we have here at Stokastic. And top 5% with the tools each and every day. I mean, that's fantastic. How can I hit number one? Well, first is going to be something that you want to be accumulating sample size, and you just want to get those highest ROI sim lineups you possibly can, and just get a huge sample size of being able to have an NBA season. Some people will find ways for those lineups to hit number one sooner. They run better. They run hotter. Some people have to wait a little bit longer. For me, my first 5K hit didn't come until February last year. And I mean, I played every single slate. I was just kind of up a little bit. I was down a little bit. I would have one that would end up really, really close. And it took me a long time and ended up in the $15, the main iteration on DK, had a 5-way split, only ended up getting like 27K from it, which, you know, obviously is good. But what I'm saying is that it takes a long time to be able to realize your ROI from time to time. And that's kind of the nature of DFS is we have tools that will put you in the best position day in, day out to win. And then there's a little bit of an element of run good that comes along with it. You have to stay in the game, always utilize bankroll management. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, utilizing the Sims tool, having those highest ROI Sims and not trying to get too cute from time to time, that can be a big difference maker. That is potentially how you can finish number one. That's pretty much all I got for you there. And I did see one more super chat come in. I'm trying to find where it went. There it is. Austin Tilley, $4. Best way to approach Sims ownership versus optimal percentage, because once upon a time, we would just go to the boom bust tool. We would be citing ownership relative to optimal percentage. Now he's asking Matt Belman, best way to approach Sims ownership versus optimal percentage when he sees 90% of like a Larry Nance showing up, or, you know, I think yesterday, you know, for NFL, like Breece Hall is just getting jammed down your throat to some extent. Being able to temper out like, oh, should I put an exposure cap? Should I figure out a way to get a little bit crafty here or there? Do I want to play some game theory as opposed to just running Sims unencumbered? How do you look at Sims ownership versus optimal percentage?
I think in general, I trust the Sims. Like, unless I've got reason to change something, I don't. So I think if that's a personal preference type thing, but for me, I'm not changing things unless I really, you know, have an angle or have like concrete evidence as to why I should change it. I'm not just changing things on a whim.
Yep.
Off a whim, excuse me.
I love that. You're going to get more pronounced. I mean, there's certain pieces of chalk that are going to be more volatile. And then you're going to get certain pieces of chalk that are just can't miss type values. And sometimes it can be as easy as seeing what the fantasy point per minute rate is going to be for a specific guy. And you can kind of have an idea of what the Sims are going to do with them in NBA. Now we're running, you know, we're doing the 5,000 pool size. That's the maximum amount that we're going to have you simming out in DK for NBA. That's pretty much all you're going to need for the most part. There are ways to tweak things here and there and then have it run with potential just schematic things. Because again, Larry Nance, I think he's a phenomenal play in the Sims tool. And it looks a lot less so if he just has a 0 minutes show up because coaches just don't do what we think they're going to do from time to time. In the Sims, they basically take that guesswork out of it. They basically say, here's the rate, here's the projection, here's the ownership, and then does all of the dirty work for you. 10,000 simulations, giving you the best options and highest sim ROI lineups. So yeah, let the Sims do its thing. Hopefully that helps you as well. I repeat, just for you guys, if you wanted to sign up and join us here for the next, 24 minutes of this show and utilize the Sims in your process, $1 code TIPOFF24. There's also a way that you can get this completely free though. Jordan Klein, 1 month, 1 month if you sign up with one of our partners. This is another quick and easy way. Maybe you want to take advantage of the $1 promo for a day or two, or maybe you want to pay for a week or so. But if you haven't signed up at any of the books on the right side of the screen, FanDuel, BetMGM, DraftKings, Caesars, Bet365, or the pick'em sites on the left side of the screen, Underdog, Vivid, Pick6, Better, or Sleeper, and Rebet, available in 47 of 50 states in America. Yeah, look at that. Pretty nifty little spot, Rebet as well. If you haven't signed up at any of our 11 partners on the screen, you can go to the link that Jordan Klein just posted into chat, and you can get the Sims for free just by taking advantage of these offers. You should probably be taking advantage of already if you're signing up and playing at books. You want exposure to as many books and pick'em sites as you possibly can, so you're always getting your money down at the best available line. And well, the easiest way to do that is signing up at every single one and just shopping for odds over at Odd Shopper. That's probably why it's called Odd Shopper, everybody. Check it out. Sign up at that link. Get those Sims for a month. Yes, a full month. That's a ridiculous value to you just by trying out one of those partner sites. Alrighty, let's look at my final run of lineups. I feel pretty good about my lineups today. I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at this. Larry Nance is my highest owned player, then followed by Dyson Daniels, Zachary Risachet, which I thought would end up being my highest owned of the entire crew, but can do a quick little 5% ROI boost to kind of change and finagle that a little bit. But yeah, my 4 highest owner Atlanta pieces. What's also nice is that if you just bypass a lot of this Indy Orlando game, which I think is going to end up being pretty unappealing. Have we gotten news on Franz Wagner, for the love of God?
Yeah, he's in. He's been in.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, but it said available to play at like 3:09 at the beginning of this show, but I just hadn't seen the starting lineup. Do we have the starting lineup?
We do.
Okay, there it is. Suggs,
Same as always.
Okay, good. Okay, just wanted to double check, doing my due diligence between the multiple spots, and well, yeah. Indy Orlando, less appealing now that you have Franz Wagner, and Paulo Banchero has a ceiling. You can fire that one up a little bit. Wendell Carter Jr., the tag's coming up, but like, what are the pieces that are even pulling the highest ownership in that game? Because, I mean, this is a game that you could very well just bypass and hope everything breaks after lock. Hopefully you get Hart or Morant out. Something crazy can happen in that direction, and we can just jam spots and move some of that Atlanta ownership around. But for now, there's no reason not to embrace the Atlanta ownership, right?
Totally. And the only guy that for me is a priority in that first game is Jalen Suggs. Yeah.
I was going to bring
I'm higher on Suggs than, I like Suggs a lot. Great matchup, great price point. I wish that Wagner were out, but I wish for a lot of other things that don't come true either.
I want a solely good toilet, but that's just not in the cards, baby. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I get it. Paulo Banchero, he's in quite a few of my lineups here as well. I mean, pretty much everything. What is our highest owned indie side player? Is it Andrew Nembhard? Is that a real thing right now?
Gotta be.
I'm just pulling up my sheet. Indy. I mean, that's so wild. Yeah, Andrew Nembhard. He's optimal. We got some positive leverage coming in on him as well. Miles Turner, TJ McConnell, I suppose. I always am down for like a TJ McConnell shot, because how many slates over the course of the last couple of years would you just be better off being above the field on TJ McConnell every single time? I'm going to argue you'd be better off.
Yeah, I think you're 100% spot on there.
Yeah, I'm going to get to 8% of him, and I think that's about it. Do you have any Isaiah Jackson interest, perhaps? This is kind of the contrarian center that I always pay attention to. He's 3,500, played 15 minutes against the Knicks. Then he hurt his groin, ended up being questionable for Friday's game against the Knicks, ended up sitting that one out against Detroit. He had been kind of like floundering around, but did end up back in. Yeah, no, so that was out for opening night, played on the 25th, only 6 minutes there on the 27th. Blowout run would definitely be the reason to potentially get there, but like, that's somebody who can put up 25, 30 at 3,500 potentially. That's like the sneaky indie play, but like on a 9-game slate, centers stacked with Jokic and Capella, like not a ton of reason to take that shot, but always something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I don't think you're crazy. I like the thinking outside the box. It might be a little thin for this slate, but that's how you win tournaments.
Okay. And obviously, if John Morant is out, we just jam Scottie Pippen to the moon, right?
Yeah, I expect Morant to play, but 100%.
Yep, I'm with you too. I think he plays as well, but wanted to just kind of like talk through the progression of this slate as we are taking questions, as we are bouncing around the table here. 2v2. I'm just going to throw this one out there because, once in a while I see something in chat that I think is interesting. Jamal Murray, Lauri Markkanen, or Derek White and Scotty Barnes. Barnes is obviously far more of a FanDuel play. If you're playing multiple sites, I like getting to that second side. If you're playing just one site, Jamal Murray, Markkanen. How do you feel about Jamal Murray today? Because this is a guy I thought I was going to end up jamming in my lineups. Like, I don't like Jamal Murray. I don't think Jamal Murray is the same. Canada couldn't even put him out on the floor, but he played 38 and 37 minutes here in the first two. They ended up losing. They played Oklahoma City and the Clippers, though. Those are two top 5 defenses. I think we can all agree on that so far. Clippers been sneaky good as they've been clamping down on teams defensively. Played competitive spots against the Suns, ran Golden State out of the gym. I like what I've seen from the Clippers as a basketball team, not so much as a DFS entity, but Jamal Murray now gets to go up against Toronto and Davion Mitchell, and he's 7,100, dude. Like, how much of him do you have on DraftKings today?
I have, I think, a good amount, but just give me 1 second because everything's updating. In my top 300, I have Jamal. I'm way under. So, and I like that. Like, I think he's getting too much love. I get it. It's a price play. He's too cheap, but there's other guys I like around him more. Jordan Poole for one. So I'm lower on Murray. In my top 300, I'm getting to about 16%. So about half the field.
Okay. I just withdrew some stuff off FanDuel so I can just play DraftKings today and finish out this show. That's going to make my life easier rather than trying to copy paste the next 17 minutes. Look at that. I am responsible. I care about you and making sure that we have the best possible shows. So let's do that. I'm going to pull up Discord here as well and take some questions because sometimes on shows, I don't always do that. And it's something that I always like to do because I love our subscribers here at Stokastic, and I want you guys to get the best value add for your buck for sure. Couple of questions. What about Roddy? We talked about that one. Dump game one and wait for news. I think that's extremely viable, although Jalen Suggs is 5,400 and got paid this summer, and they haven't really played a competitive game yet. He got ramped up to 31 minutes in a loss against Memphis by 13. I think Jalen Suggs is a really good play against Indy, and we know the pace-up spot that Indy can provide. I think I like Orlando's side of things a lot more than Indy, but that's going to be a popular take all year long, I think, Matt.
Yeah, 100%. Orlando just plays slower and has much better defense than Indiana does. I like Suggs a lot. I've already talked about it. My big worry is like the game against Brooklyn, he only played 22 minutes, and that game was a 15-point game, but it wasn't like a blowout in the sense that guys weren't playing. So, like, for instance, Banchero in that game played 37 minutes. Like, why did Suggs only play 22? You're going to have games like that. You're not going to really have the answer to it, but I'm willing to, go with that embrace that variance in tournaments.
Yeah, he only played 16 minutes in their last preseason game. They were still ramping him up. They got him completely paid. He had played 22 minutes the previous game of that in the preseason. Didn't really have to utilize him against Miami. And, early on in the season when you're going to have back-to-backs, if you are running a team like Brooklyn out of the gym and you can get Jalen Suggs off the floor, you're probably going to do it. But 17 shot attempts, 13 three-point attempts there against Memphis. There is definitely a ceiling at 5,400 here against Indy. That is for frickin' sure. Cool. Matt's the GOAT. What's happening? I love Matt. Thanks for answering, Eric and Matt. You're so welcome, Brian Cranberg. Again, sometimes doesn't always have to be super chats. I can mix in questions from absolutely anybody humanly possible. EMAC is talking it at length because, he's an old man who's just screaming at the clouds. So
when is he not talking at length?
That is so unbelievably true. We got Jordan Klein throwing in Sims. We've got him in the single lineup simulator here, firing stuff up. All right. It's nuke of the night time, I think. We're at the 15-minute mark. It used to be the backwards hat, the flip around when it was money time at the halfway point of the show. I think 15 minutes before lock is about the appropriate time for the aforementioned nuke of the night. There we go. Just blowing stuff up. Blowing things up. And my penis is no longer connected to my body. All right, Matt Belman, tournament plays, baby. I don't want to hear anything popular on this end. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that, but I want to hear who is going to be in the optimal tournament winning lineup tonight. Who is your nuke of the night?
Guy that I liked a lot, that I'm starting to like even more, that we didn't talk about a ton because we talked about Luka and Jokic. I'm going to flip the script. Give me Giannis.
Giannis, baby. He seems pretty good at basketball. He's low owned.
I don't know if you mentioned it or I heard it earlier, like Milwaukee's been struggling. Boston's interior isn't the strength of their team, especially with Porzingis out. So I do expect Giannis to just do whatever he can to keep the Bucks in this game. And if they're in this game, it's going to be because of Giannis.
All right. I'm torn between two guys because Jokic feels like, the same thing as you, where you're going to Giannis. I love Jokic on the expensive end, but that one feels a little bit too sweet, a little bit too cute. So I'm going to get a little bit different here. Washington is not going to be in very many competitive games here going forward, but there is no doubt that Atlanta is a pretty good spot to be landing, especially with Atlanta being on a back-to-back for more competitive spots. Now, all of the talk has been about Jordan Poole, and Jordan Poole's had these really good slates. Who ends up not getting brought up in those conversations? Kyle Kuzma, who is currently 0 for 9 from 3 to start off the season and 9 for 32 from the field. We are talking an abysmal start to the season for Kyle Kuzma, but you know what happens when somebody doesn't have great fantasy performances? Their salaries stay low. He is 7,500 against Atlanta in situations where they potentially are going to be playing him at the 4, maybe even the 5 at times, because Atlanta on the other side has so many different lineups, small ball lineups they could go to without Capella on the floor. And I think Kyle Kuzma is going to have some massive rebounding opportunity games, maybe less so with Sarr out there now, but Kyle Kuzma at 7,500, if we see shooting regression towards the mean for him, which again, it has been brutal to start off this season, I think he is an awesome piece to intertwine into these Atlanta heavy lineups, because if this game stays intact and the Atlanta chalk does well, I want something that's a little bit lower owned, a little bit nifty to bring along for the ride that also benefits from a close game. And that would be, of course, friends, Kyle Kuzma, 13% ownership, nearly 15% optimal percentage. My unexpected nuke of the night. How do you feel about Kyle Kuzma?
I love that call. We talked about that game a ton. Kuzma didn't get mentioned once. I love finding players that aren't getting a ton of love in, chalkier games. So I think that's a great call.
Yeah, my allergies just killing me today. Anywho, we are going to persevere on. We got 11 minutes to rock. No lotion plays of the night, so we're not going to be pulling that thing up, whatever the hell that is. We are on the show with Matt Belman, not Matt Kajeski, so we have no wagon of the night to be talking about either. I think exotic play of the night is absolutely not a thing. I saw that. Don't watermark me. Don't do it like that. Don't do it like that, okay? It's inappropriate. It's not very good producing, Jordan Klein. Okay, $2 super chat from Pierre. Are we jamming in Booker on FanDuel if Beal is out? Yeah, that I'm probably going to do if I were playing on FanDuel, but I took all my FanDuel lineups out just before that 15-minute lock period. So, I'll go back and re-look at things here. My previous sim, yeah, I love Devin Booker. 8,400 for him too. And Durant ended up getting the boost up. He's at 9,300, completely out of play for me in any event that Bradley Beal is in. But yeah, if you end up getting him out, that is kind of an uncomfortable thing with Portland lingering out there. It's a weird construction of a slate with those 2 evening games. Like, normally I hate on DraftKings when they leave them off. I'm kind of happy that they did for this one, purely because Beal is such a big piece of the FanDuel slate. And yeah, I would think that Booker, you'd want to get as much of as possible if he's out, correct?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Full disclosure, I haven't looked at it a ton because I'm only playing on DraftKings, but that seems to make a lot of sense.
All right, official Chris Presto channel, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Which is projected to be less owned for center, Miles Turner or Jaren Jackson Jr.? I'm not even looking at it, and I can already tell you that it is going to be Jaren Jackson Jr. because we have such minutes concerns for him. He's 7,600. I think he is completely unplayable today.
Neither are going to be popular, but I'm with you.
Yeah, if I'm going to take shots on somebody, I have 6% John Morant here at the moment. That's who I was kind of talking about in the 9K range. I really didn't have a lot for 9K above that wasn't Jokic. I'll probably take a look at Giannis pending exactly what that starting lineup ends up looking like. Maybe we get Deuce McBride as a talking point of this slate if Josh Hart is out. Maybe John Morant is out himself. But even if John Morant is out, I'm far more inclined to jam Bane and Smart and Pippen than what I am Jaren Jackson Jr. And yeah, he's pulling 0 ownership. Miles Turner currently is pulling. Where did he just go? Miles Turner over on DraftKings.com is 4% owned. So yeah, very, very small nominal ownership going his direction as well. So hopefully that helps you out for whatever you were looking for. Rich Boy D's $1.99. Fred versus Spurs over Murray on FanDuel. Let's see. Fred versus Spurs over Murray on FanDuel. I would think Jamal Murray is going to be good in any capacity. On FanDuel, a little bit different than on the DK side of things. Jamal Murray is 7,300, so not crazy different, but his optimal percentage is a lot lower there. You get 4 guard spots, basically, point guard, shooting guard, and the rotation you can have around it. Like, if you want to try to 1-for-1 swap it out, I don't mind Fred VanVleet as like a contrarian piece on either of them, but on FanDuel, he's about appropriately owned. But 7,300, yeah, I wouldn't completely hate that. But if you're just asking me one or the other, it's hard not to say Jamal Murray. He's projected slightly better for me.
Again, couldn't agree with you more.
Nick Thompson, $2. Gentlemen, who is turning my sheets brown? Good lord. The Amber Heard play of the night. We don't have anything for that one. We haven't gone down into the doldrums. This show has not hit rock bottom yet. It's close. It's gone close at times. Kicker of Hunts. Yes, the good old days, the terrible days when I used to cry myself to sleep. Yeah, Amber Heard play of the night. Who is going to shit the bed? Matt Belman.
I'm kind of worried about Reese Shea, not going to lie. Like, that's the guy that I think might shit the bed, even though I'm playing him.
He's going to play like 28, 30 minutes in a competitive spot.
Yeah, I mean,
shoot the ball like crap, and then
I don't.
A lot of trouble.
The answer isn't going to be someone who doesn't play. You know what I mean? Because
right,
they're not going to be in lineups. You know, like, who's your answer for that?
Kyrie Irving.
I was like, did I lose you for a second? Yeah,
nope, I had to think about somebody I was way underweight to. Kyrie Irving.
Is he even going to be in lineups though? Is my question.
Yeah, 7,500. He's 18% owned rate.
Okay,
yeah.
Fair.
So there's blowout concern. There's Klay Thompson concern. Klay Thompson going to be the usage guy. Threes are worth more than assists are for Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. So if Klay Thompson keeps shooting the ball at a decent 3-point clip like we've seen early on, also want to hear the fun stat of the day, Matt Belman, because again, I'm in the betting side of things. Klay Thompson, through 59 minutes of basketball this season, he has 1 assist in each game. He has 1 potential assist in each game. He has 2 total assists on the year and 2 potential assists. The guy is not passing the ball. It is up in the air immediately. His job is to be out there and shoot threes. And my God, Klay Thompson has jumped in the time machine and decided, yo, I'm going to be 2014 me, and I'm going to chuck without even thinking twice about it. It's absolutely absurd.
I respect it. So yeah, I think he has officially found the fountain of youth. The new city, new teammates, has a little bit of he's scorned lover type from Golden State. So I'm buying Klay this year.
Jeff Williams, $4.99. Appreciate you, Jeff. Play 1 lineup on the DK888. Good luck to you. Suggs, Poole, Coulibaly, Sohan, Capella, Young, Reese Shea, Levine, Thoughts, ROI. Jordan Klein, that's going to be on you here for the next 4 minutes here as we get our lineups in and finalize everything for this early game. I don't want to bypass Suggs. I don't want to bypass a little bit of Paolo Banchero, some of these other pieces. So I'm going to finish up one more run of the Sims here as we get ourselves the heck up out of here. But we saw one more question here. Oh, RJ Barrett in player on a minutes limit. He's not expensive the way that like Jaren Jackson Jr. is expensive. And we haven't projected for more minutes, but I will say it would shock me to have RJ Barrett show up optimal small forward only, 31 projection, 6,800. That's going to be a no from me, dog.
Yeah, I'm generally with you on that one.
Okay, cool.
I mean, like, I don't think he's unplayable because he could play more, but like he's
Right.
not a guy that I'd be targeting like in any sort of format.
No, I would not be either here at this point in time. So we're not going to do that by any means. But somebody just asked, what is the most important post-lock news for you, Matt Belman? And I think that that's an important thing as we sign off before the NFL show, which will be showing up here in what, a grand 15 minutes or so after the fact, 15, 20 minutes. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. I'm assuming that we have Laufey and Matt Kajeski on that one, correct, Jordan Klein?
No, Greg.
Oh, Gregory joining the fray. Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be awfully fun. So stay tuned to that for the beautiful Pittsburgh Steelers hosting New York Giants football game. Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one for sure. I gotta tell you. Daniel Jones over 25.5 rushing yards. That's about all I got for you. But most important post-lock news: John Morant, Josh Hart. I can't think of anything else. Can you, Matt?
No, it's got to be Josh Hart for me, just because I expect Morant to play. Now, maybe that's foolish of me, but like same injury he was listed at going into Sunday or going into Saturday, I think he plays. Josh Hart is really questionable.
Yep. He's absolutely questionable, beyond questionable. Sometimes, some would say I'm questionable, but not at the moment, friends. We are just about here to lock. I'm tuning in. Is there any other? Oh, super chat. Do we have another one? I already got that one. You weren't listening to me. Hefe Williams, did he ask me? Oh, there you go. 10.2% simulated ROI. Why are you so mean to me? Why? Your attitude has just gotten worse and worse. I swear to God. I already did. Play one lineup, DK888. We talked through it. Thoughts? I like the lineup. I thought it looked good. And it's got a 10.2% simulated ROI. I obviously pay attention to news because there's things that can change, but I think it looks all right. Did you have any other thoughts, Jordan Klein? Did you? That's going to do it for you. That's great. That's so lovely to hear. Thank God. Guys, smash the like button for Jordan Klein, who I love working with. There's nothing I would rather do than hang out with Jordan Klein and have him produce my shows that I'm on for my job, because he's so astute and always listens to me and takes my feedback well. Thank you, Jordan.
I got you, bro.
All right, we're officially at lock. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, these long pauses mess with me, so we got to work on that.
No, they don't. You love them. I just ended up bypassing that entire game because my lineups weren't getting in. So I hope nothing from Indy, and hope nothing from the first game ends up optimal, or I'm going to be in shambles. I hope for news to drop, and obviously I'll be in the Discord, so if you guys have any questions, fire them up there. Love you all, guys. Just like I love Jordan Klein and Matt Belman. I do like Matt Belman a lot. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, good luck tonight, and can't wait to get on another show with you.
Can't wait to be on another show with you and not the other person. Goodbye. Valanciunas starting.